Yung po bang bansa natin talaga, gusto na nating gutay-gutayin. Kung meron po tayong gustong baguhin, hindi po dapat siguro yan sa oras na ito, sa panahon na ito, at sa pagkakataon na ito.
Wala pong kapangyarihan ang Senado na iwaksi ang malinaw na utos ng saligang batas. Ang kapangyarihan ng bawat opisyal ng pamahalaan ay hinihiram lang po natin sa taong bayan. Galangin po natin ang taong bayang nagbigay ng tiwala sa atin.
Gusto daw ng taong bayan na ito ay talagang magkakaroon na kagad ng impeachment. Taong bayan ginagamit. I don't know kung sinong taong bayan yung sinasabi nila.
Ang daming lugar sa buong Pilipinas yung Duterte nanalo ang kampanya nila, wag ituloy yung impeachment
Pero bilang senador, Mr. President, we must do our constitutional mandate. Mandato natin sa Constitution yan. At nang hindi natin gagawin yan, ay bugbog tayo sa mata ng publiko.
I therefore move that we already convene as the impeachment court at this very moment, Mr. President.
Majority Floor Leader.
The good minority, the distinguished minority leader is urgently seeking the floor. I move that he be recognized.
What is the pleasure of the Honorable Minority Floor Leader, the Honorable Aquilino Pimentel?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today on a question of privilege. That's why I'm asking for the understanding of our colleagues that their explanation.
I yield, Mr. President, to the minority leader.
Thank you. May be heard later, Mr. President. Under Section 107.
The gentleman may proceed.
Under Section 107 of the Rules of the Senate. Section 107. Questions of privilege are those affecting the rights, privileges, reputation, conduct, decorum, and dignity of the Senate or of its members, as well as the integrity of its proceedings. Because of the impeachment case against the Vice President, the Senate itself is now on trial. The reputation and dignity of this institution we hold so dear, painstakingly built up by the many senators who have served before us, together with our own efforts, are now being attacked online and in the real world out there. Outside our own gates this morning, there was a demonstration involving a substantial number of our constituents. The root cause of this is the apprehension of our people, based on recent pronouncements and developments, that there will be no impeachment trial against Vice President Sara Duterte. Respected academic institutions and other organizations have spoken with one voice. We call on the Senate of the Philippines to comply with its constitutional duty to forthwith proceed with the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Z. Duterte. These are the UP College of Law faculty, the Philippine Political Science Association, the San Beda University Graduate School of Law, the Ateneo School of Government, the La Salle University, University of Santo Tomas, and Adamson University, among others. I am submitting copies of their statements to the Secretariat to form part of the records of the Senate. The people have also taken to Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and other social media platforms to voice their concerns and frustrations. Across these channels, the sentiment is clear and growing. Nagkaroon ng agam-agam ang taong bayan. Bakit parang pinapatay na ang impeachment proceedings? This question reflects a deep unease among our citizens, a growing fear that the impeachment process is being deliberately stalled or even quietly ended. There is confusion as well as distrust at a time when our constitutional duty demands decisive and quick action and not unnecessary delays and endless debate on whether our duty is optional, captured by the phrase, if at all. What is that constitutional duty which I have just mentioned? It is a mandate or directive addressed to the Senate and is found in Article 11, Section 3, Paragraph 4 of the 1987 Constitution. And I will read it. In case the verified complaint or resolution of impeachment is filed by at least 1/3 of all the members of the House of Representatives, the same shall constitute the articles of impeachment, and trial by the Senate shall forthwith proceed. Since the time we received the articles of impeachment from the House of Representatives on February 5, 2025, I have been very vocal that trial by the Senate shall forthwith proceed. I wrote the Senate President a letter dated February 14, 2025, expressing the following ideas, and I quote from the said letter. According to the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary, forthwith means without any delay or without interval of time. Its synonyms include immediately, instantaneously, instantly, presently, promptly, right away, right now, straight off, and straight away, among others. Considering that the 1987 Constitution was promulgated in both English and Filipino, we must examine its official Filipino translation. Kung ang pinanumpaang sakdal o resolusyon sa impeachment ay iniharap ng isang katlo man lamang ng lahat ng mga kagawad ng kapulungan, iyon ay dapat bumuo sa Articles of Impeachment at dapat isunod agad ang paglilitis ng Senado. The Filipino translation for forthwith is agad, which conveys immediacy. The synonyms of this Filipino word include madali, bigla, dagli, o kara-karaka, which denote urgency or promptness. The above elaboration affirms that it is the Senate's duty to act on the impeachment case of Vice President Sara Duterte without any delay or without interval of time. I repeat that this is the Senate's duty. I am submitting a copy of my letter dated February 14, 2025 to the Senate Secretariat to form part of the records of the Senate. In spite of all of my efforts, member of the minority na nga ako, I am also being hit by all these attacks against the Senate. How much more kayo pong nasa majority? We should all be concerned about what is happening. One writer wrote, all of the country's senators, yes, all of them, as embodiments of the Senate, are failing the Filipino people. Hence, I have every right to stand up to express my question of privilege as I worry about our beloved institution's reputation, integrity, dignity, and even our place in Philippine history. It is now June 9, 2025, or more than 4 months since the filing of the Articles of Impeachment, and the Senate has not yet started the trial. Tama lang po na mainip ang taong bayan kung kailan ba natin gagampanan ang constitutional duty natin. Indeed, there is a reason for the no trial fears of our countrymen. To remind us, the Articles of Impeachment transmitted by the House of Representatives on February 5, 2025 read as follows. Article 1, Respondent betrayed the public trust, committed culpable violations of the Constitution, and or committed high crimes in contracting an assassin and plotting to murder or assassinate the incumbent president, the First Lady, and Speaker of the House of Representatives, as publicly admitted by her in a live broadcast. Article 2, Respondent betrayed the public trust and or committed graft and corruption in her misuse and malversation of confidential funds appropriated to the office of the Vice President, open and close parenthesis OVP, and the Department of Education, open and close parenthesis DepEd. Article 3, Respondent betrayed the public trust and or committed bribery and or other acts of graft and corruption in violation of Republic Act number 3019. Article 4, Respondent committed culpable violations of the Constitution and or betrayal of public trust in amassing unexplained wealth and failing to disclose all her properties and interest in properties in her statement of assets and net worth, open and close parenthesis SAL-N, in violation of Section 17, Article 11 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution. Article 5, Respondent committed other high crimes, including the high crime of murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Article 6, Respondent, by herself and or in concert with others, committed acts of destabilization constituting at least a betrayal of public trust and or culpable violations of the Constitution and even the high crimes of sedition and insurrection. Article 7, the totality of Respondent's conduct as Vice President, including her commission of the foregoing acts, clearly display conduct constituting a betrayal of public trust, culpable violations of the 1987 Constitution, and graft and corruption. These allegations are serious. They demand nothing less than a prompt and faithful discharge of our constitutional duties. Actually, all matters of impeachment are serious and important. Just look at the grounds provided by the Constitution. Culpable violation of the Constitution, treason, bribery, graft and corruption, other high crimes, and betrayal of public trust. The Senate President refused to convene the Senate as the impeachment court from February to May 2025 because he believes that the Senate could not act on the articles of impeachment while it was not in legislative session. We have an honest difference of opinion on this matter. For the record, I believe that the Senate has a separate existence as the impeachment court from the Senate, which is a part of the legislative department. The Senate as the impeachment court is governed by Article 11 of the 1987 Constitution. The Senate as a part of the legislative department is governed by Article 6. In short, legislative functions of the Senate are found in Article 6. The other functions of the Senate found outside of Article 6 of the Constitution are therefore what we can call the Senate's non-legislative functions. This conclusion is bolstered by the case of Pimentel Jr. versus Joint Committee of Congress, which involved the function of the Senate as part of the National Board of Canvassers for President and Vice President, a function which is found in Article 7 of the Constitution. The Supreme Court ruled in this case that the legislative functions of the 12th Congress may have come to a close upon the final adjournment of its regular sessions on June 11, 2004, but this does not affect its non-legislative functions. What is more important to me is the entry in the judgment which states as follows. In sum, despite the adjournment sine die of Congress, there is no legal impediment to the Joint Committee completing the tasks assigned to it and transmitting its report for the approval of the joint public session of both houses of Congress, which may reconvene without need of call by the President to a special session. I want to focus on the phrase, without need of call. There shall be no need of a call because the Constitution itself recognizes Congress's existence as the National Board of Canvassers for the presidential and vice presidential elections and mandates the holding of a joint public session. So in short, the source of the existence of the body and the authority and power to carry out its function and duty is the Constitution itself. It is therefore undeniable that the Senate has duties and functions that are not legislative in nature. As an additional argument, still on this honest difference of opinion, let us look at Article 6, Section 19 of the Constitution. Meron naman yung copy ng rules natin dyan ng Constitution. This section talks about two bodies of which Congress, including the Senate, is a member of: the electoral tribunals and the Commission on Appointments. There is a sentence here in that section that the Commission on Appointments shall meet only while the Congress is in session. Meaning to say that if the sentence were not in the Constitution, then the Commission on Appointments can meet even while the Congress is not in session. The electoral tribunals can therefore meet even when the Congress is not in session because there is no such sentence applicable to the electoral tribunals. Unlike the provisions concerning the Commission on Appointments, there is no similar constitutional limitation found in Article 11 on when the Senate as the impeachment court can convene, meet, or hold sessions in order to perform its functions. Ulitin ko, wala pong sinasabi na ang Senado as the impeachment court shall meet only while the Congress is in session. Wala. Wala po yan. Clearly, therefore, the Senate as the impeachment court could have proceeded with the trial of the articles of impeachment even if the Senate as a legislative body was not in session. But that period of time from February to May 2025 is lost time already. Like water which has passed under a bridge. To remedy the situation, let us focus on the here and now. Per the proposed calendar of the impeachment trial, attached as Annex A to the letter of the Senate President addressed to all senators dated February 24, 2025, we were supposed to have allowed the panel of prosecutors to present the articles of impeachment on June 2, 2025 at 3 p.m. and to have convened the Senate as the impeachment court on June 3 at 9 a.m. I am also submitting a copy of the letter of the Senate President dated February 24, 2025 with its Annex A to the Secretariat to form a part of the records of the Senate. It is stated in the said Annex A that the Senate hopes to adhere to the foregoing schedule and considering that both the prosecution and defense will have ample time to prepare for the proceedings, will not tolerate any dilatory motion or pleading. Before June 2 arrived, on May 29, the Senate President vacated this proposed calendar of the impeachment court and transferred the presentation of the articles of impeachment by the panel of prosecutors to June 11, 2025, which is a critical date because that happens to be the last day of the legislative session of the Senate per our existing legislative calendar. Last Monday, June 2, June 2, 2025, when I asked the Senate President before the plenary on the American practice in impeachment proceedings regarding the appearance of the prosecutors from the House of Representatives, the Senate President answered me with, and I quote, "That in turn will now trigger, if at all, the convening of the impeachment court where the regular processes would now be followed." Diyan po kami natakot, diyan sa qualifier na if at all. That inserted qualifier casts doubt on whether the Senate leadership will follow what is otherwise a clear constitutional command. It suggests that even after the articles of impeachment have been read and presented, the convening of the impeachment court might still be discretionary or optional. This use of the if at all phrase has not escaped the notice of our citizens. The situation is exacerbated by the pronouncement of the Senate President that, in the end, Senate plenary is supreme. Add to this the circulation of a resolution, although admittedly a draft, declaring the impeachment case de facto dismissed. Can we therefore blame law professors, lawyers groups, civil society groups, known legal personalities, and even ordinary citizens for raising the alarm of a no-trial scenario? So how do we and can we remedy the situation we are right now? The remedy is simple. As senators, we have taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the Philippines, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. Let us follow what the Constitution says, most especially those provisions which are directed at the Senate. Sabi ng Konstitusyon, trial by the Senate shall forthwith proceed. There is no if, no unless, no when convenient. Indeed, the Senate has a constitutional duty to hold the trial of an impeachment complaint, especially when it has been filed by at least 1/3 of all the members of the House of Representatives, like in this case against the Vice President. Trial is the most fair course of action because the people need to know if their representatives acted properly and justly by hearing the evidence used by them in filing the impeachment case. And in the name of due process, we need to give the impeached officer the chance to defend himself or herself and clear his or her name. Klaruhin ko na ang pinag-uusapan natin dito ay kung ano ang constitutional duty ng Senado, hindi kung guilty or not guilty na ba ang impeached officer. Saka na ang hatol pagkatapos na ng trial. Ang importante ay mag-umpisa na ang trial proceedings kasi yan ang utos ng ating konstitusyon. Mr. President, my dear colleagues, any further delay not only undermines the explicit mandate of the Constitution and our rules, it risks eroding public trust in the Senate's capacity and capability to uphold the accountability of public officers and the rule of law. Not only do many believe that the Senate is heading to a no-trial scenario, worse, many have opined that simply by inaction or by merely refusing to convene as the impeachment court, the Senate seems to believe that it can effectively dismiss or defeat an impeachment complaint duly filed and transmitted by the House of Representatives. Under Rule 10 of the Senate's Rules of Procedure on Impeachment Trials, at the hour of the day appointed for the trial of an impeachment, the legislative business of the Senate, if there be any, shall be suspended so that the business of the trial can proceed. So in the light of all of this, and in accordance with our solemn duty under the Constitution, I most respectfully move, number one, that our legislative business be suspended. Number two, that we already convene as the impeachment court at this very moment. Number three, that the Senate President immediately take his oath as presiding officer of the impeachment court. Number four, that thereafter, the Senate President / presiding officer administer the oath or affirmation to all the members of the Senate now present. Number five, that the impeachment court then call the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte and come up with a calendar for the trial thereof. Number six, that tomorrow, June 10, 2025, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the impeachment court call the impeachment case for the presentation and reading of the articles of impeachment by the panel of prosecutors of the House of Representatives. And number seven, that thereafter, the writ of summons be issued to the impeached officer. So I so move, Mr. President.
What is the pleasure of the Honorable Ontiveros?
Salamat Abi, Mr. President. I wish to second the motion of the Minority Leader through a manifestation.
All the motions of the Minority Floor Leader?
That is correct, Mr. President.
Duly noted.
May I deliver my manifestation seconding the motion of the Minority Leader, Mr.
The lady may
President?
proceed.
Salamat Abi, Mr. President. I second the motion of the good Minority Leader. Forthwith, and with no further delay, the Senate President must be placed under oath as presiding officer. He must then administer the oath to the members of the Senate as judges of the impeachment court. And most importantly, the articles of impeachment, which have long languished in limbo, must forthwith be presented to the body. First of all, the Constitution establishes with clarity the mandatory nature of impeachment, and this textual interpretation is supported by the framers. Article 11 on accountability of public officers, Section 3, subsection 4, states in no uncertain terms that once, quote, the verified complaint or resolution of impeachment is filed by at least 1/3 of all the members of the House, the same shall constitute the articles of impeachment, and trial by the Senate shall forthwith proceed, close quote. Hindi po mahirap intindihin ang utos. Sa sino mang tapat ang intensyong sundin ito. Ang paglilitis ay dapat agarang simulan, nang walang pag-iwas o iba pang pagpapaliban. In fact, retired Justice Adolfo Azcuna, who wrote the procedural section that included the word forthwith, said that it meant, and I quote, immediately and without unreasonable delay, or in the national language official version, agad-agad, close quote. Sa kasong Chavez versus Judicial and Bar Council, GR number 202242, na dinesisyonan noong July 17, 2012, ipinaliwanag ng Korte Suprema na sa pag-interpreta ng saligang batas, dapat gamitin ang karaniwang kahulugan. Quote, "It is a well-settled principle of constitutional construction that the language employed in the Constitution must be given their ordinary meaning." Close quote. Simple lang po ang dahilan. Quote, "The Constitution is not merely or not primarily a lawyer's document, but essentially that of the people, in whose consciousness it should ever be present as an important condition for the rule of law to prevail." Wala pong pagdududa. The impeachment trial must begin immediately, agad-agad, walang pag-iimbot. Yan rin ang paninindigan ng mga mismong naging bahagi ng pagbuo ng ating konstitusyon, kasama sina Attorney Rene Sarmiento, Chairperson Christian Monsod, at ang nabanggit kong si retired Supreme Court Justice Azcuna. Kahit ang mga propesor at praktikante ng batas sang-ayon na dapat simulan ang paglilitis sa lalong madaling panahon. Kasama dito ay mula sa Philippine Bar Association, University of the Philippines College of Law, Ateneo Schools and Colleges of Law, De La Salle University Tanyada Jokno School of Law, San Beda University Graduate School of Law, Philippine Law School, University of Santo Tomas, Lyceum of the Philippines College of Law, Adamson University College of Law, Colegio de San Juan de Letran, at Union of People's Lawyers Mindanao. I will submit these statements to the Secretariat and ask that they be made part of the official records of the Senate as annexes to this manifestation, seconding the motion of the Minority Leader. Moreover, a textual reading of the provisions on impeachment vis-a-vis the other provisions involving the legislature actually supports the contention that the impeachment proceeding is not bound by the legislative calendar. Ayon sa saligang batas, quote, "The Commission on Appointments shall meet only while the Congress is in session at the call of its chairman or a majority of all its members to discharge such powers and functions as are herein conferred upon it." Close quote. There is no such qualifier to be found in the provisions on impeachment. Secondly, beyond the textual clarity of the Constitution, the law should be interpreted to give life to its spirit. Ratio legis est anima. I am here before you to also appeal to the deeper purpose of the law. And the spirit of the impeachment power is unmistakable. It is accountability. It is to ensure that no public officer, however powerful, is above the Constitution. Sinasabi nila na ang impeachment ay nasa Article 11 or Accountability of Public Officers, portion ng ating saligang batas, at hindi nasa Legislative Powers o Article 6 to underscore that impeachment was never meant to be part of the legislative process. Tama po iyon. However, there is a deeper reason to be fleshed out. It is because the power to impeach is, at heart, the power, nay, the duty to hold public officers accountable and to protect democracy from the abuse of power by the highest officials, public officials of our land. This process must not be rendered impotent through procedural subterfuge. Dapat po nating alalahanin na ang salita at diwa ng mga probisyon ng saligang batas ay hindi dinesenyo para lang paglaruan ng mga abogado. Itinakda ang mga ito para bigyang kahulugan at kapangyarihan ang taong bayang Pilipino. Sa pinakaunang probisyon ng Article 11, kung saan matatagpuan ang impeachment, ay nakasaad, quote, "Public office is a public trust. Public officers and employees must at all times be accountable to the people," close quote. Sa Article 1, Section 1 naman, quote, "Sovereignty resides in the people and all government authority emanates from them," close quote. Ang kapangyarihan ng bawat opisyal ng pamahalaan ay hinihiram lang po natin sa taong bayan. At ang kapangyarihang ito ay nakasalalay sa patuloy nilang pagtitiwala at sa patuloy nating pagiging katiwa-tiwala. Ang pagdinig ng mga akusasyon sa impeachment trial ay itinalaga ng saligang batas para sukatin kung karapat-dapat pa ring patuloy na ipagkatiwala sa mga pinakamataas na opisyal ng pamahalaan ang lubos na kapangyarihang iniatas ng taong bayan sa kanila. Proteksyon nito laban sa pagbabaluktot ng batas, malubhang abuso, korupsyon at pagtataksil sa interes ng publiko. Ang pagtakas sa responsibilidad na ito ay insulto sa bawat Pilipino. Thirdly, nothing in the Senate Rules of Procedure in impeachment trials provides basis for this inordinate delay. Much has been said about attempts to follow proper procedure, but our own Senate Rules of Procedure on impeachment trials are bereft of any basis to justify the undeniable delay that has defined the Senate's proceedings thus far. Wala pong sinabi sa rules on impeachment na susundin ang legislative calendar, na bawal mag-impeachment trial on legislative recess, o na pag tinransmit sa last day yung articles of impeachment, ay kailangang in limbo ito, nakabitin sa ere. The inaction of our body on the articles of impeachment transmitted by the House of Representatives on February 5, 2025, is not because of anything definitive or inescapable written in the rules. Hindi po tayo inipit ng rules. Hindi po natin pwedeng sabihin na wala tayong choice, that we were straitjacketed by what our rules on procedure provided. We had a choice every step of the way. And our choice has been to delay, to drag our feet, to hide behind what we say are legal ambiguities. Tapos ngayon, if I might add, biglang bibilisan. An impeachment trial of all of 3 days. We've dragged our feet for several months, and then suddenly we tell the Filipino public that we are able to sift through the evidence and exact accountability from the second highest official in our land within a period of 3 days. What insanity is this? Lastly, I wish to address the point made by the good Senate President, who stated that the Senate cannot be dictated upon and that the Senate plenary is supreme. Respectfully, while the Senate is granted the power and duty to try and decide impeachment cases, its authority is not unbounded. If it acts in violation of the Constitution itself, it can and should be corrected. Wala po sa rules na ang pagsisimula ng paglilitis at pag-convene ng impeachment court ay kailangan pang pagbotohan at aprubahan ng mayorya. Anyone who objects to commencing the impeachment trial is objecting to the Constitution itself. In the case of Francisco Jr. versus House of Representatives, GR number 160261, promulgated on November 10, 2003, the Supreme Court ruled, quote, "It is basic that all rules must not contravene the Constitution, which is the fundamental law. If, as alleged, Congress had absolute rule-making power, then it would by necessary implication have the power to alter or amend the meaning of the Constitution without need of referendum," close quote. Wala pong kapangyarihan ang Senado na iwaksi ang malinaw na utos ng saligang batas. Hinihimo ko po ang pinuno at mga kasamahan ko sa Senado. Sundin po natin ang malinaw na mandato ng saligang batas. Galangin po natin ang taong bayang nagbigay ng tiwala sa atin. At simulan na po natin ang impeachment trial na ito. Dapat ay madali ang dinggin ito at ang paglilitis, sinsero at hindi minamadali. Kakulang pasasalamat, Mr. President.
Duly noted and entered into the records. What is the pleasure of the Honorable Senator Tolentino?
Mr. President, we heard a few minutes ago the speech, the statement delivered by the distinguished minority leader. And it would appear, Mr. President, that multiple motions were inserted calling for a ruling, not just from this body, but from the chair. As a point of information, Mr. President, may we know from the distinguished minority leader if he can just subdivide what is the main motion, what is the subsidiary motion, what is the incidental motion, because it appears now that this is confusing, Mr. President, especially on a matter of transcendental and constitutional importance, Mr. President.
With the permission of the Senate President.
Before recognizing the Honorable Minority Leader, what is the pleasure of the
Thank you.
Honorable Villanueva?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Minority Leader, Majority Leader. With the indulgence of our dear colleagues, this might be a prejudicial question before we actually dispense with the motion of the Minority Leader. But first things first, Mr. President, let me state for the record this representation's position from day one, Mr. President. The word forthwith, the crossing from 19th to 20th Congress, everything that the Minority Leader mentioned, Mr. President, ay sinishare ng representation na ito. Kailangan mag-convene ang impeachment court, kailangan magsimula. Ngunit naniniwala din po ako, Mr. President, and since day one, when the Senate President made mention about the June 2 schedule, this representation did not oppose nor pose an objection in this August chamber, Mr. President. Because I believe what the Senate President is doing. When he extended it to June 11, I don't see any reason, or I would say undue delay, unnecessary delay, etc., because I think all of us here during that time would agree that the trial would commence on the 20th Congress. And having said that, Mr. President, let me just put into the records, Mr. President, our own rules, Mr. President, in the rules of impeachment, Rule 1, the Senate President must actually issue a notice, Mr. President, to the House of Representatives. And that's the reason why he wrote a letter in June 2 and then June 11, Mr. President. If I heard it right, Mr. President, and that's why I wanted to be clarified on this particular issue, if I heard it right, the Minority Leader's motion is for us to stop legislative work and start taking the oath of the Senate President as the presiding officer of the impeachment court and the senator judges. It would also mean, Mr. President, that we assume that the impeachment proceeding, the articles of impeachment had already been referred, Mr. President, because we have not. And so let me just put that on record, Mr. President. And again, I thank the Minority Leader and again share his views about the immediate convening of our impeachment court. And I don't see any reason, Mr. President, why we should convene now than on Wednesday, Mr. President, which is 2 days from now. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Minority Leader.
So, Mr. President, so that we can
The Minority Leader will respond to the
so we can dispose of the pending
clarification
matter.
asked for
Yes.
by Senator Tolentino. Yes.
Yes.
You may proceed, sir.
So that the body can properly act on the pending matter, which I have raised in my question of privilege based on our rules. I therefore move that we already convene as the impeachment court at this very moment, Mr. President. That's the motion, Mr. President. And we expect the ruling.
If I may, Mr. President. If I may, I have already mentioned earlier, Mr. President, and because this representation wouldn't want to raise a point of order. And again, for the record, I share the sentiments of the Minority Leader. We have the same position as to the convening of the impeachment court. We have the same position as to whether or not it will pass through the 19th to 20th Congress. It's the same, Mr. President. But again, I don't want to raise a point of order, Mr. President. But in our rules, Mr. President, you yourself, in Rule 1 of the Rules of Procedure on impeachment trials, let me quote, Mr. President, when the Senate receives articles of impeachment pursuant to Article 11, Section 2 and 3 of the Constitution, the President of the Senate shall inform the House of Representatives that the Senate shall take proper order on the subject of impeachment and shall be ready to receive the prosecutors on such time and date as the Senate may specify. So, Mr. President, I wanted to find out if the motion of the minority leader will push through, what would happen, Mr. President, if you have not issued any notice, Mr. President? What would happen to your letters na from June 2 ginawa nating June 11? Does it also mean, Mr. President, na baliwala na po ito? So, that is just a procedural question, Mr. President. And again, let me put again on the record that I have the same position as the minority leader, that if we can convene as much as possible, Mr. President, the impeachment court, I would go for it, Mr. President. Thank you.
Mr. President, there
Before
is no,
Senator De La Rosa, the Honorable
yes, there
Pimentel.
is no basis to raise a point of order because no provision or section of our rules has been violated. And that factual question from our colleague that the Senate President shall take proper order on the subject of impeachment has been done. There is a letter from the Senate President to the House dated May 19, 2025.
Which will be on June 11, Your Honor.
No. Hindi na po ito. Ang ibig sabihin lang po nito, itong ating Rule 1 ng ating Rules on Procedure on Impeachment Trials, sabihin lang ng Senate President sa House that the Senate has taken proper order of the subject of impeachment and we are ready to receive the prosecutors on such date and time that we will tell you. So yun na po yun. So I think this has been satisfied by the does the Secretariat confirm the May 19, 2025 communication from the Senate President to the House of Representatives? Tama po ba?
But at the same time, na-refer na ba yung ano?
The Secretariat confirms a letter dated May 19, setting the convening of the impeachment court supposedly on June 3, which was later on amended at a later date, setting it on June 11. Before recognizing the Honorable De La Rosa, Chair would like to make of record that as stated in the February 24, 2025 letter of the Chair to all the members of the Senate, where we quoted all the relevant Supreme Court decisions and rules and the basis for the action of the Senate President and Chair, namely, citing precedents as well as the practice both in the past by the Senate of the Philippines and by the U.S. Senate, na nagsasabi, kailangan mabasa in open session ang articles of impeachment. This is clear from the practice in the United States where we lifted, as the gentleman previously stated, more than a majority of our rules, and this was also done in the impeachment complaint. The only impeachment complaint that actually went through to the end during the impeachment trial of Chief Justice Corona. The impeachment articles were read in plenary before it was referred to the impeachment court. However, it was done by the majority leader at that time. That was the first time it was done, not written in our rules too, but when the Secretariat checked precedents and practice in the United States, it was actually the House prosecutors that did it, or who usually does it in the United States. Hence, the notice given for the June 2nd, June 3rd reading by the House prosecutors of the articles of impeachment. Thereafter, that will now be referred to the impeachment court, which will give rise to the creation of the impeachment court, the oath of this representation, as well as the members of the Senate, and the convening of the court to approve its rules and to set the calendar of the court, both either in this Congress or in the next Congress. For the record, as stated by Senator Villanueva, and as I stated, both off the record, meaning in media interviews, that the chair is of the belief that this will cross over to the 20th Congress, very much like the citations given by the Honorable Pimentel, not only because presidents in the U.S. so state, we have our own precedents too with respect to the Senate Electoral Tribunal, where the questions pertain to a term spanning 6 years, which therefore crosses over to the next Congress, despite the fact that the members of the Supreme Court constituting the SET and members of the Senate constituting the SET have been changed in the course of the change of the new Congress. And finally, as a point, Chair also made known its position that as a general rule and as a general principle, the law frowns upon starting something and not finishing it. Tulad na lamang ng mga kaso na kabinbin sa korte, hindi porkit nagpalit ng judge o nagpalit ng mga maestrado ng korte, automatic dismissed yung kaso. Magpapatuloy yung kaso hanggang yon ay matapos. Before recognizing Senator Pimentel, may I ask, what is the pleasure of the Honorable De La Rosa, who was earlier raising his hand in the middle of the discussions?
Mr. President, if I may, just very quick,
With the permission
Mr. President,
of the
with the
Honorable
permission
De La
of
Rosa,
my two colleagues,
The
Mr.
Honorable
President,
Pimentel, the Honorable Cayetano,
very short,
Senator
Mr. President.
Villanueva is
Very short.
recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Very short lang, Mr. President. Again, I am in the same position of the minority leader, but I just wanted to make sure that we are doing the right thing, the right process, and that we are, because we are men of rules, Mr. President, we wanted to make sure that we are in the right position to do this. The reading and the referral of the articles of impeachment in session, Mr. President, was done during the impeachment of former President Estrada, November 14, 2000. During the impeachment of Ombudsman Gutierrez, it was also referred, Mr. President, in session, during the last day of session, March 23, 2011. In the impeachment of Chief Justice Corona, it was also referred, Mr. President. It's just that's why, Mr. President, I just have this belief that we should refer first, Mr. President, before we can make that motion. And I will join the gentleman from the minority, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President.
Noted. Senator, what is the pleasure of the Honorable Cayetano?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just have to be clarified on some points, and this is in relation, of course, to the minority leader, the deputy minority leader, and to our former majority leader. So if I may proceed and just lay out the basis for my inquiry.
The gentleman may proceed.
Well, first let me start out by saying I pray for wisdom for all of us, and I ask everyone to continue to pray for wisdom for us. I also like to state before I say my inquiry, it's unfair to just blame the Senate President. 23 naman tayong senador conscious naman tayo lahat ng February 5. Nandito naman tayo, pwede naman tayo mag-object ng nung nag-adjourn, nung final yan. So, as the minority leader said, nandyan na yan, wag na natin tignan yung nakalipas, forward na tayo, no? Second, I just want to comment dun sa mga law schools. I appreciate it, and I'm happy they're very active, and I'm happy that they have statements. But may I advise them also to be consistent? Kasi si Congressman Cardema nag-file ng impeachment laban sa Pangulo. Hindi tinanggap sa House Wala naman ako narinig na mga sinasabi na dapat ang konstitusyon masunod at dapat tinanggap ng House yan. So, of course, hindi naman trabaho ng mga law schools na in each and every impeachment case magsalita. Pero in a highly charged environment. Can you imagine, Mr. President, during the campaign, sa mismong media interviews ng top news channels natin, tatanungin yung kandidato, pag kayo nanalo, are you for or against the impeachment case? Klaro naman ang sagot doon Ang sagot doon, hindi kami pwede mag-comment kasi magiging judge kami. Pero hindi. Sinagot pa rin ng mga kandidato at tinanong pa rin ng media. Pero kung konstitusyon ang masusunod, ang sagot doon iisa lang, mag-o-oath kami, dapat neutral kami. Kaya lang eleksyon eh. Kasi masama naman talaga timing ng pagka-file nito eh. Magpa-file ka during the campaign. That's the reality there. Kaya nga sa US, pagka-jury system, pwede mo i-sequester yung jury eh. Papayag ba tayo nung February na i-sequester tayong 23? Na ikukulong tayo at hindi tayo makikinig sa kahit anong media at i-determine natin ito? Maybe may papayag sa atin, meron hindi. But wag na tayo magsisihan. So I'll go to my question. So maybe that's why Shakespeare said, if you want justice, first kill all the lawyers. Diba? Kasi nga labanan ng mga abogado to, pero hindi ibig sabihin na wala silang mga personal na bias nila. Mahirap magsalita dito na insulto sa lahat ng Pilipino to, eto ang gusto ng taong bayan. Ang daming lugar sa buong Pilipinas yung Duterte nanalo ang kampanya nila, wag ituloy yung impeachment So, sasabihin ko ba na yun ang will ng tao? Pero kung titingnan ko naman lahat ng comments ngayon sa Facebook, sa SOCMED, gusto naman ituloy. Pati si Vice President Sara, sabi niya, I want to be held accountable. So siya yung ba sabihin ko, yan ang gusto ng taong bayan. Napakahirap po nung sitwasyon natin. That's why we need wisdom. But first question ko po, prejudicial question. Ano bang rules ang unang masusunod? Rules ng Senate o rules ng impeachment? Bakit to importante at bakit to prejudicial question? Tinitignan ko po kaninang umaga yung comment, allegedly, hindi ko sure, wala naman nakalagay doon na siguradong totoo yun, but meron pong comment ang defense team ni Vice President Sara Duterte. Correct me if I'm wrong, Senator Bato, Senator Bongo, my good friend, my brother, Senator Robin, kasi hindi ko alam kung official yon. To paraphrase, ang sabi nila, hindi magandang mag-comment sila, but they'd like to reiterate na tingin nila labag sa konstitusyon yung impeachment complaint na to dahil ito'y pang-apat at lumalabag to sa isang complaint sa isang taon. Okay. Kung yun ang stand nila, sino po ang hihimay sa issue na yan? Ang plenary ba under the Senate rules or yung impeachment court under the impeachment rules? Bakit ko po ito sinasabi? Kung may pinadalang bill ngayon yung House of Representatives, halimbawa dyan sa 200 pesos, at second reading pa lang halimbawa siya, pag ni-refer natin sa Committee on Rules natin yan, magbabaycam na ba kagad tayo o sasabihin natin, sandali lang, second reading pa lang sila, kailangan mo ng third reading pa lang. Ang sinasabi sa akin ni Senator Villanueva ngayon, pinadala lahat ng records except for the bill that they passed. So we cannot act on the 200 peso minimum wage, additional sa minimum wage. But that's my point, Mr. President. Sino po magde-decide? Tayo po ba as senators o tayo as senator judges? Kung nilabag ang konstitusyon doon. And doon naman ako sumasang-ayon sa mga law schools. Let's proceed. Let's look at it. But yun nga ang question. Yung complaint ba is firm, legal, according to Constitution, or may constitutional infirmity ito? My last question is just a question of logic. Nag-move yung ating minority leader na to convene na as a impeachment court. Yung ating deputy, sabi niya, hindi na kailangan magbotohan. Pag nag-move ka, may botohan. So, sino masusunod sa dalawa? Why do I say this? I'm saying it not because it's funny that one will move and then kailangang magbotohan and the other one will move na magbotohan. Kung matalo botohan, sabi niya, hindi kailangan ng botohan I say this for a simple practical reality. When you say the Senate, it is composed of 24 or in this case 23 senators. So pag sinabi mong gumalaw ang Senado, ibig sabihin po either walang nag-object or may botohan at yung majority masusunod. I cannot say right now, like Senator Villanueva, that I'm 100% in agreement with Senator Coco and Senator Risa. I can tell you I'm in agreement with certain things they've said. For example, Mr. President, it's our constitutional duty. Kailangan mag-proceed. We should have done it earlier. But again, I won't blame you. I won't blame them. I'll blame myself. I could have written you a letter. I could have said na February, mag-ano na tayo. But let me just explain that one point. Why didn't I write you a letter, Mr. President? Kasi pag Pangulo yung ini-impeach, every single day na nandyan, kung totoo ang allegation sa Presidente, we all suffer. The country suffers, our institution suffers, accountability suffers. Pero pag Vice President, especially ngayon, hindi naman siya binigyan ng ibang trabaho eh. Wala naman siya sa kabinete. Yes, I want accountability. Pero between today and Wednesday, I'd rather pass yung Konektadong Pinoy at saka yung e-government at lahat ng ibang bills na nakapending dyan. So Mr. President, may I end by reiterating the question. Do we follow first the rules of the Senate or do we go into the impeachment court? Sino magde-decide nung allegations ng defense na na-violate ang Constitution sa one impeachment per year? The second is just to continue my observation, Mr. President. I agree with many here. Wala tayong choice, forthwith. But I disagree na sa Tagalog, agad-agad ang forthwith. Ang forthwith, yung ibig sabihin nun sa Tagalog is yan na yung susunod. Yan na yung gagawin mo. Oo, immediate yung agad-agad. Hindi ako expert sa linguistics, pero medyo hindi agad ang Tagalog ng forthwith. Yung immediately, yun, agad yun, or agad-agad, di ba? So, maya-maya, hindi, ibig sabihin ng forthwith, sangayon naman ako ang ibig sabihin ng forthwith, wala ka ng to quote dos por dos, susunod na. O yun ang ibig sabihin ng forthwith. Yung wala ka nang hihintayin, yun na. Kaya agree ako sa inyo na kailangan talakayin natin yung impeachment complaint. Pero gusto kong iklaro, sa tama o sa mali, botohan ang mangyayari sa atin. Hindi pwede pong bumoto yung 15 na hindi magko-convene yung impeachment. Tapos 9 kami o 8 tayong magpapakita doon na naka-rogue. Kasi sinabi ng 15, hindi magko-convene eh. Anong pwedeng gawin? Pupunta ka ng Supreme Court, uutusan tayo ngayon ng Supreme Court. Yun ang legal system natin, Mr. President. So sana, tama desisyon natin para hindi na tayo maghintay na utusan pa tayo ng Supreme Court. Pero yung sabihin na walang botohan dito, I agree with the spirit nung sinasabi ni Senator Risa na dapat wala na. But the practical reality is that you have one senator who ask for a vote. We have to vote and the majority will follow. But yun nga, Mr. President, reiterate ko lang yung tanong ko. So dito po sa 1-year rule, sino po magde-decide niya? Is it the Senate sitting as legislator, so rules muna ng Senate? Or is it the impeachment court? Because if it is the Senate, we cannot yet convene as an impeachment court because we haven't tackled that issue. But if it is the impeachment court, then we can go, and that's the first issue that we will have to tackle, whether it is a valid complaint. No? At tinatanong ko lawyers ko, hati din po eh. Sabi nung kalahati, hindi, dapat yung Senate kasi it's treated like any other legislative matter. Titignan muna natin kung tama yung pagka-transmit sa atin. Eh malay mo, transmit sa atin, nahack pala. Hindi pala galing sa House of Representatives. That might sound like a silly example, but it is. It is possible. That's why we have to look at it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Before the chair responds, chair would like to afford the opportunity to the other members who would want to add to the discussion and the knowledge being imparted regarding the subject matter at hand.
Mr. President, Senator De La Rosa is
Senator De La Rosa was earlier raising his hand but gave way to Senators Villanueva and Cayetano. What is the pleasure of the Honorable De La Rosa, sir?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, according to Senator Cayetano, ito'y labanan ng mga abogado. Hindi po ako abogado, Mr. President, but I just would like to manifest my observation na to be fair to the Senate President, pag sinabi natin na you have an intention to delay the impeachment proceedings, I would like to state for the record, Mr. President, na 1 month ago pa, pinagawan muna kami ng robe, Mr. President. Kasi excited na tayo na sumuot ng robe para to form the impeachment court. To be fair with you, Mr. President, you've been preparing for that. And yung schedule natin na naka-schedule sa Wednesday, which is 11, if we give the ruling today, whether ano ba talagang gusto natin, today or Wednesday, I support you, Mr. President, kung anong gusto natin schedule. Sana mapag-usapan natin ngayon. Hindi ako abogado, pero ako ay isang Pilipino na gusto sana na hindi na tayo magkakagulo sa Pilipinas. Hindi tayo magkawatak-watak. At yung mga nagyayabang dyan, na sabi nila, gusto daw ng taong bayan, na ito ay talagang magkakaroon na kagad ng impeachment, taong bayan, ginagamit. I don't know kung sinong taong bayan yung sasabi nila. Because, alam ko, Mr. President, halos lahat ng tao ng Mindanao at ng Visayas, as I have observed during the campaign period, ang sabi sa atin is, Sir, ibubuto kita kung hindi ka magboto sa impeachment or hindi ka magboto sa conviction. Yun ang sinasabi ng taong bayan. Kaya please, do not use the term taong bayan palagi because taong bayan is hindi lang kayo. There are always two sides of the coin. Bakit ba? Wala bang value yung mga taong bayan na nagsasabi na ayaw namin ng impeachment? Gusto nila? Ang ibabalyo ng Senado ay yung mga tao lang na nagsasabi na forthwith kuno yung impeachment na yan. Ano, kalimutan na natin yung ibang tao na majority na nagsasabi na ayaw namin ng impeachment dahil panggugulo lang yan sa ating bansa. Lalo tayo nagiging divided. Lalo nasisira ang ating ekonomiya. Mga investors umaalis na dahil ang gulo ng Pilipinas. So yun lang po, Mr. President. I am 101% supporting you. What's your stand, Mr. President? Thank you, Mr. President.
Noted and entered into the records. Senator Ontiveros, our Deputy Minority Floor Leader, is recognized.
Salamat po, Mr. President. I a comment on the second point of the good gentleman from Taguigan Pateros, because there's nothing funny or illogical in and between the motion of the minority leader and the seconding of this representation. The motion of the minority leader is to convene at this very moment. That is what is to be subjected to a vote. Now, instead of on Wednesday. To convene at all is not to be voted upon. Sa usaping yan, sundin lang natin ang konstitusyon. Salamat, Mr. President.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
With the indulgence of Senator Pimentel, Chair recognizes Senator Cayetano, thereafter Senator Pimentel, thereafter Senator Padilla. Senator Cayetano, you may proceed.
Mr. President, I don't want to further the division or the debate, and I wasn't making fun of it. Ang sinasabi ko po, the reality is may tama't mali, may moral, immoral, may legal at illegal. Hopefully, dun tayo parati sa tama. Hopefully, ang legal, yun din ang moral. Ang problema in a collegial body, Senate, House, Commission on Appointments, we move as one based sa pagboboto. So it's just showing the irony that if the minority leader was moving that we've convened now, and the deputy minority leader was saying, you don't need a vote. But if you can vote whether it's now or Wednesday, then I can also argue, then I can also move na saka na. If you can vote when, whether today or Wednesday, then you can also vote na next Monday or next Thursday. So that is the paradox we are in today. So whatever decision we make, sana may wisdom. Sana matupad ang konstitusyon, dapat matupad ang konstitusyon, dapat ang kalooban ng ating mga kababayan. But the reality is po, we will be acting as a body and the vote will matter. So yun lang po, and I don't have a debate. I respect what the majority and deputy minority leader has stated. You know, as I said, some of what they say I agree with, but we have to find it in our hearts that even if we disagree, we support the chamber.
Senator
President.
Pimentel, thereafter
Yes.
Senator Padilla. Senator Pimentel, you may proceed.
Just to respond to some of the points raised by Senator Joel Villanueva. Yan, mahirap kung nasisingitan, Mr. President, nalilimutan natin yung topic. Mr. President, siguro i-inform ko lang yung body, no, na yung referral of an impeachment of the articles of impeachment to the Committee on Rules is not found in the rules of the Senate as a legislative body, and it's not found in the rules of the Senate as the impeachment court. So you cite past practice. Okay. But then,
It's the reading.
I don't think the Senate President will dispute my projection or my anticipation that he intended actually to introduce something new. For this particular impeachment case, he will refer it, the plan of the Senate President is to refer the after the reading, the read articles of impeachment directly to the impeachment court. So ibig sabihin nun, talagang pwede tayong mag-introduce ng innovation because the past practice is not supported by the letters of our two sets of rules, Mr. President. So, ang aking point is, we can actually, the motion, actually, do not fear this motion because this motion will only take up little of our time. Ang gusto kong mangyari, hindi tuloy-tuloy ang ating, if we need to do some preliminary matters before the trial action, ang trial action meaning to say may witness sa witness stand, mayroong direct examination, cross-examination, malayo pa yan, after pa yan pag-filing ng mga answer at saka ng reply. Pero ang aking point is, we can convene the impeachment court so that we can now take the Senate President as presiding officer can take his oath. He can administer our oath. The Senate as the impeachment court is convened or has been convened. We can call the case and then preliminarily talk about the trial calendar of the said case. We will know when we call the case, when we ask the clerk of court to call the case or cases, malalaman natin anong case load natin. And I believe isa lang ating case load. So we have to now come up with the trial calendar for that case. So that will be the effect of the motion, Mr. President, if it is carried. Na-advance yung Wednesday setting natin to today as far as the oath-taking requisites are concerned. We devote a little time to come up with the trial calendar. It can be a preliminary trial calendar. And if we are now convened as a court, the other motions I will take up, like now asking the House of Representatives panel of prosecutors to appear before us tomorrow, no longer on on Wednesday. Kaya naman gawin. Kung nagawa nga to June 11, hindi rin masama na pwede rin magawang June 11 to June 10. So, and that will be brought up before us acting as a court already, Mr. President. Kasi court matter na yung case matter na po yun. So that's the explanation, Mr. President, para baka akala ninyo back down na tayo. Worried si Senator Alan Cayetano sa kanyang e-gov at saka konektadong Pinoy. Suspended lang po yung legislative business natin for maybe 1 to 2 hours, 1 hour and a half. We can go back to our legislative business, Mr. President. But at least we have convened the court. And then sunod lang tayo sa Constitution kasi we should also believe that the Constitution has its own wisdom. Kasi ratified din ng taong bayan po yan. Baka nalimutan natin. Ratified by the people ang ating Constitution. So, yes, thank you.
Before recognizing Senator Villanueva, just for the information of Senator Pimentel, it's not only eGov and Konektadong Pinoy that's ready for ratification. Ready for ratification would also include the virology bill, the expanded Philippine Science High School system, and the 99-year lease bill. Just for the record.
I think, Mr. President, since I still have the floor, I think last session day natin, we suspended, we adjourned at close to midnight. So it doesn't
The
matter.
first session day, we
yes, also
nearly midnight.
1 hour to 2 hours devoted for the impeachment court, I don't think will harm us, Mr. President.
With the permission of Senator Villanueva, Senator Padilla had earlier, on this point.
Because in relation to what the minority leader
with the
stated.
indulgence of Senator
Just
Padilla.
very quick, Mr. President, in relation to the statements made by our minority floor leader.
Senator Villanueva
Thank you,
may
Mr.
proceed.
President, let me put on record also, Mr. President, that I welcome innovation. I welcome what do you call that, Mr. President, when we will no longer refer it to the Committee on Rules and ask perhaps one of the prosecutors to read the articles of impeachment and all the cases thereon. I don't have problems with that, Mr. President. And again, as mentioned earlier, I agree, Mr. President, that we need to convene as soon as possible the impeachment court. But my only question, Mr. President, is if we are not violating our rules because, Mr. President, hindi na ho ba importante na maglabas po kayo ng notice? Hindi ho ba yun ang dahilan kung bakit kayo sumulat na i-schedule nung June 2, tapos ngayon June 11, tapos ngayon magbabago po tayo? Hindi na ho ba kailangan yun? And if it is not, Mr. President, then I will vote for it, Mr. President. I will go with then that's the reason why I'm clarifying all these issues, Mr. President. Kung hindi na kailangan magbigay ng notes, because at the end of the day, we wanted to protect and give importance to due process, Mr. President. That's all I'm saying, Mr. President. We don't want any legal infirmities, Mr. President, along the way. And I know that once we convene as an impeachment court, marami pa ho tayong mapag-uusapan ng mga issues. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo. Thank you, Senator Robin Padilla, for yielding the floor to this representation. Thank you.
With the indulgence of Senator Pimentel, Chair would now like to recognize Senator Padilla. You may proceed, sir.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo. Katulad po ng sinabi ni Senator Joel Villanueva, ako po ay hindi po ako abogado, katulad po ni Senator Bato. Pero sa maikling panahon ko po dito, lagi natin binubuksan ang ating rules. At yan po ang unang-unang dinala sa akin nung ako po ay nanalong senador at ako po ay pinuntahan ng sekretariat. Ang una pong binigay sa akin ay yung rules. Napaka-importante ng rules. Yan po ang unang-una talagang isinaksak sa aking ulo. At bukod po doon, tradisyon. May tradisyon dito na kailangan susundin mo, lalo ka na neophyte. Ngayon, ang tanong ko po, sa dalawang nangyaring impeachment, yan po ay kay Pangulong Estrada at kay Chief Justice Corona. Lagi pong dinadala doon sa Committee ng Rules. At yan po ay inaasahan natin sa pagkakataong ito na doon uli makarating. At hindi naman din po ako kumokontra, katulad din po ni Senator Villanueva, kung meron po tayo mga gustong baguhin, bakit naman po ako kukontra? Dahil yan nga po ang gusto ko, yan ang aking tagline, pagbabago. Pero hindi naman po siguro dapat sa oras na ito. Bakit naman sa oras na ito tayo gagawa ng isang bagay na katulad din po ng sinabi ni Senator Bato de la Rosa, talaga po bang tayo ay gusto nating magkahiwa-hiwalay na talaga? Yung po bang bansa natin talaga, gusto na nating gutay-gutayin. Kung meron po tayong gustong baguhin, hindi po dapat siguro yan sa oras na ito, sa panahon na ito, at sa pagkakataon na ito. At katulad din po ng sinabi ko, lagi ko pong sinasabi, paulit-ulit, hindi po ako abogado. Ako po ay madalas akusado. Ako po ay ex-convict. Kaya ako po ay sanay sa korte. Ako po ay laging humaharap sa korte. Lahat po ng mga proceeding ng korte na abutan ko na hanggang po sa pakakakulong. Kailangan po siguro maipaintindi po natin sa lahat na due process. Kailangan dumaan po tayo sa due process. Hindi po tayo pwedeng palundag-lundag. Yun lamang po. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Thank you, Senator Padilla. Senator, what is the pleasure of the Honorable Ejercito?
Yes, Mr. President, just like to second the motion of
You may proceed, sir.
the parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President. Doon po sa punto na niraise po ni Senator Villanueva regarding at present the rules on impeachment trials, the Senate has a duty to inform the House of Representatives that we are ready to receive the prosecutors. My inquiry is that in case we act on the motion of the minority, that we proceed immediately. Are we obliged as a body, as a Senate, obliged to issue new sets of notices? Yun lang po ang inquiry ko, Mr. President, because from what I gathered, that it's our duty to inform the House that we are ready to receive the prosecutors, and likewise, probably the Vice President as the accused in this case, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
What is Majority Floor Leader?
Mr. President, before we recognize the distinguished minority leader, perhaps to rephrase again.
No, maybe to respond, to help our colleague, Mr. President.
I don't think we're there yet.
I think
Majority
Senator-
Leader, we're still
Senator
in
JB
the period of
I
debate.
think soliciting some information, Mr. President.
I yield, Mr. President.
So can we?
The Minority
Yes,
Leader
yes.
may proceed.
So this is my interpretation of Rule 1, Mr. President. Ang pinaka-importante rito is the communication from the Senate to the House that the Senate has taken proper order of the impeachment case that you have filed. Yung mga detalye as to when na-adjust, yung original nga niya na June 2, na-adjust niya to June 11 in a subsequent communication. So my point is, if we convene as a court now, and then as a court we agree to advance their appearance before us to tomorrow, we just also communicate. But you can also you can also disagree and not maintain the appearance sa Wednesday. But the point is, my motion is to convene as a court now. We take our oaths now. The impeachment court has been convened. This is more in keeping with the spirit of the Constitution na ang action agad. Tapos pala, balikan ko na lang yung issue kanina just for the record kasi yung pagtagalog ko or pag-Filipino ko sa provision na English na nasa Constitution, dun yun sa official Filipino version. Ang sinabi dun, isunod agad. So do not dispute na hindi ang katumbas ng forthwith sa Filipino ay hindi agad. Agad nga yung nasa official version. So hindi na ako mas marunong sa mga nag-translate po ng Constitution sa Filipino, sa wikang Filipino. So I hope this will help our colleague, my explanation will help our colleague when he makes his decision on the pending motion. So, with that, Mr. President, I think I've already restated my main motion earlier, Mr. President. So, I think it's time that we dispose of the pending matter, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Kasi mix.
Senator
Zubiri.
What is the pleasure of the Honorable Zubiri?
Just add to the discussion. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, just to add to the discussions, because the Senate right now is under extreme pressure. All eyes are on us, Your Honors. And each Congress, each Senate has stood up to many of these challenges. On my time, it was the fake People's Initiative that we defeated. Now it's about the impeachment of our Vice President. So we must act in accordance to our rules and traditions and precedent. Many sides have been spoken and explained. The good minority floor leader wishes to have it the soonest possible time, although our precedence, Mr. President, is that we file it to the Committee on Rules. The Rules releases the report, and then we take action as jury, as judges on this impeachment court. Ang akin lang po, sana kung ganun po ang proseso na pipiliin natin, no, didesisyonan natin, gawin natin kaagad. Ako po ay taga Mindanao. Pareho po kami ni Senator Bato de la Rosa. Kaya ako hindi naniniwala sa mga survey. Kasi the surveys were read wrong in May, what was that? May 12? May 12, 2025. All surveys were thrown out the window. And the real story was 7 of the 12 senators were not members of the alliance. So, of the national government. So, ibig sabihin, may mensahe po silang ipinapadala sa taong, sa lahat, sa buong Pilipinas, na kaming sa tagasulok ng Mindanao at Visayas ay meron din boses pagdating sa halalan. Pero bilang senador, Mr. President, we must do our constitutional mandate with due respect to all those concerned. Mandato natin sa Constitution yan. At nang hindi natin gagawin yan, ay bugbog tayo sa mata ng publiko. So that's why I agree with the minority floor leader. Whatever the outcome of the trial, you end up voting. For one, I think it is a weak case. But I will reserve my judgment until all the evidence is presented to us, and then we will make the proper vote when the time comes. Pero ang punto dyan ay dadaan tayo, kailangan natin dumaan sa constitutional process that was given by our forefathers when they wrote the 1987 Constitution. Yun lamang po, huwag na po natin patagalin pa. At sa tingin ko, isa pang tanong, ay pwede ba ito tumawid sa 20th Congress? Personally, I've said this to the media, I said, personally, I think hindi siya pwedeng itawid sa 20th Congress. Na kung pwede, pagdebatihan na natin yan na yun. Kung gusto nyo, hanggang petsa 30 ng Hunyo, araw-gabi, nandito tayo. Pero kasi, meron pa mga constitutional questions with the Supreme Court. So, my point being is, let us follow our constitutional mandate of the Constitution. So I agree with the minority leader, but at the same time, I also agree with our colleagues, Mr. President, that proper procedure should be followed. Para pabilisan na lang natin yan. Para malitisan natin na maayos, mapakinggan natin ang mga ebidensya kontra at pabor sa ating mahal na Vice Presidente, and then we make the decision at the proper time. But I don't think we can skirt from our constitutional duty. I'm not a lawyer. I'm an agriculturist. But I truly believe when I took my oath to defend and protect the Constitution, we must do so without fear or favor. Yun lamang. At the end of the day, this is a political exercise. Boboto tayo. Di boboto tayo. Tama? Minority Leader? Yun lamang po, Mr. President. I just had to weigh in. Because the Senate, I love the Senate, Mr. President. I love this institution. And I don't want to see all the brickbats that are being thrown to us saying that we are not doing our duty. We must stand up and rise to this occasion and do our duty. Thank you, Mr.